Emily, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. If you take this blue pill, then the swamp ends and you'll wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. But if you take the red pill, you stay in the swamp. And I'm going to show you how deep this rabbit hole goes. I was trying to think how deep this frog hole? Frogs don't have holes, though. Or do they? If I gave you the choice now to forget that we ever did this podcast, would you take it? I wouldn't blame you.
No, because I need at least one hobby.
Yeah. Which is just being on a Zoom call with a friend once a week.
Exactly.
That's my hobby.
Watching a movie that I would already be watching. Except that's the funny thing. I've never seen this movie before.
And I am shook to my core about that. I think the reason I knew... Oh, so this is The Swamp. It's our podcast. It's an acronym.
Stands for some whack-ass movie podcasting. My name is Emily.
My name is Dara. And I was shook to my core because your mom bought you this really cute little Christmas gift, and it's like a poster that has the little scratch-off things for like it's like the top... Does it say like top 100 movies of all time?
Yeah,
But, like,
I don't know by who.
Metric. Yeah, I don't like...
It's not IMDb.
Or maybe just whoever made the poster was like, yeah, The Godfather. That seems right. But you like scratch it off and it like reveals the movie poster once you've watched it. So every time I go and I get to judge all the ones you haven't seen, which isn't like Aladdin. How many? There's one on there that is absolutely...
No. It was, I just didn't scratch off The Lion King. I've seen The Lion King. I mis-scratched.
A mis-scratch. But you had never seen The Matrix, and I was like, this also has to be a mis-scratch, because who the fuck hasn't seen this movie? But you
never saw The Matrix. This was my first watch. And I had, like, nary, like, an idea of what this movie was actually about.
Which is also...
Like, I knew, like, a little bit. I knew red pill, blue pill, all that shit, whatever. Like, but... the robots. I didn't know what The Matrix was. Not a clue.
See, that's so wild to me, because I feel like this movie is, like, culturally ubiquitous. Like, I feel like everything has done a Matrix reference at one point or another. Like, this movie is so genre-defining that it's wild to me that you got the experience to go in with, like, nothing. Because that's pretty cool. And I'm glad I didn't, like, accidentally spoil anything. Other than that, I did kind of spoil for you that this is like a super trans allegory, which is why we have picked it for this month. It's Pride Month, and we decided to do all movies that were made on some higher executive level by an actual LGBTQ person, writing, directing, what have you, not just like actors, but, production level, because, it's important that movies about queer people are made by queer people. And this movie is not directly, like, I think if you didn't know or weren't thinking to look for it, you would never really get that interpretation from it. But when you know, it is so fucking obvious that the Wachowski siblings directed this movie in 1999 when it came out, and have since both come out as trans and have both been really like, oh yeah, like The Matrix is a trans allegory. Like, of course it is. Like, we were both in the closet and very much like projecting that into, the script. And you could also read it as just like just identity in general allegory, also like Jesus Christ ? Also very much just like on paper, like the hero's journey or whatever. But once you kind of get into the nitty gritty of like gender identity, this movie really opens up to a lot of shit that I feel like you wouldn't like. I didn't even know that the directors of this were trans until like well into, my adult life. And now watching it again, I'm like, oh my God, like there's literally a character named Switch who presents as masculine in the real, quote unquote, real world, and like feminine in The Matrix. Like, what? That's so like nail on the head. I love it.
Right. Wild. Yeah, no. Like watching this movie through that lens was also super interesting, because I would sit there and I'd be like, oh my God, look at everything that's happening. And then I'd be like, oh my God, it's so gay.
Also, yeah, everybody in this movie is so gay. The fact that Neo and Trinity get together, I'm like, you're both gay. Trinity is a lesbian.
I know, yeah, exactly. But at one point, like, I started seeing, like, Morpheus as this, like, Sylvia Rivera type of, like, elder queer, like, leading all of these, like, people. I'm like, oh my god!
Like their little found family.
Morpheus threw the first brick at Stonewall.
Thank you, Lawrence Fishburne. Also, they're just, like, all in pleather.
Come on. Oh my god.
Yeah, this movie is hot. If you have access to pleather, you can be anyone from this movie.
Yeah. It's truly impressive.
But also, like, the mobility, watching her, like, run and kick and dive in a pleather jumpsuit, I'm like, absolutely not, ma'am. That is not how this works. Pleather is so... Because it's clearly, like, PVC. Like, it's not, like, leather or even, like, latex. It's clearly, like, the fake shiny shit.
Of course.
Which, like, looks still fucking fire. But I'm like, no, you would be so sweaty. She smells rank under there. I know it.
The amount of fans that they probably had on set going immediately when they called cut.
They filmed it in Australia, too. Hot.
Half of the budget was probably for just the cooling systems that they had on set.
For Carrie-Anne Moss's trailer to just have central air.
Do we want to try to give a bit of a recap?
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you haven't seen this movie besides me... I mean, there's probably, like, what, 2 other people?
On the planet.
Yeah, on the planet.
Yeah. It basically, for the most, like, every week I start and I'm like, the most simplest reduction of this plotline is, and then I talk for 10 minutes, and then I'm like, and then they have a conversation about this thing, and oh my god, I'm so bad at it. But Keanu Reeves is Thomas Anderson, who is a coder guy, software programmer, but he's also a hacker. That's his little hobby, but it's like less of a hobby and more of a lifestyle. And it goes by Neo. That's his like hacking name. His real name is Neo, because that's, again, with the like trans allegory. At one point one of the agents calls him Mr. Anderson. He's like, my name is Neo, like please call me by my gamer tag.
Yeah,
that is
if you dead name me again, I swear to God.
But he basically has this inkling that there's this greater power or this like ominous thing that's happening, and he only kind of knows a surface level, like he has an inkling, but he doesn't really know. And so then Morpheus kind of catches on, and he's like, oh, let's like get him in on this because I think he might be Jesus Christ. And then he sends Trinity to get him, but then the agents, which are like sentient computer programs that are like basically the government, they're like, no, you have to come with us, and they plant a weird bug into his belly button, and then Carrie-Anne Moss is like, we gotta get this out. So they rip it out, and then they take him, and then they're like, oh, red pill or blue pill, you can either like get woke or you can continue to be a sheep in a cog in the machine. And he's like, red pill, please. And so then he wakes up and he's all atrophied and in some goo, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And then they pull all the tubes out of him, and he's like, and then they're like, he's like, why do my eyes hurt? And they're like, you've never used them before, this is the real world. And it turns out that what he thought was real life was just like a simulation that they give to people while they put their bodies in goo and harvest their energy to basically, for these giant robots who've taken over the world, like artificial intelligence are harvesting human energy to continue to dominate the planet or whatever. And then there's only one city left where people are real and awake, and it's called Zion, and they're basically trying to like start a revolution. And they're like, oh, but there's a Jesus who needs to like come back to save all of us, and it might be you, but who's to say? And then they train him, and he learns kung fu, and then he's like, I'm gonna fight. And then they go to the Oracle, and she's like, babes, you're not Jesus. And then he's like, okay. And then Morpheus is like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for you. And he's like, no, just kidding, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for you. And it turns out he is Jesus, and he just needed to believe in himself all along. And then they fight all the agents. There's a helicopter crash. At one point, one of the members... Yeah, he does all the bullets, a lot of fighting, action sequences. At one point, one of the like members of their little team, Cypher, he is like a double agent, and he's working for the other side because he wants to get plugged back in because he's like, I fucking miss being ignorant and getting to just like ball out and not have to eat oatmeal every day.
Please unwoke me.
So he like is like, oh, I'll give you Morpheus if you plug me back in. He tries to kill everyone, but then they, you know, they turn it around. He gets got. And then at the end, it's like, because Neo is so Christ-like, he's able to like fight the agents who apparently are like indestructible because he knows how to like, because you're in the Matrix, if you realize that everything is fake, you can move faster than the speed of light because you're like, nothing's real. It's kind of like when you're like worried if an outfit doesn't look good on you and you're just like, I'm just gonna act like I look really hot, and then you do because you just simply have overcome the like insecurity of like wearing something that might be like kind of out of your comfort zone. But it's like, if you just like act like you look hot, everyone will be like, you look so hot.
Yeah. And then you feel like a god.
Yeah, I was like exactly like that. It's like trying to flirt with somebody before versus after like 2 drinks.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, suddenly like the barrier is lifted and I realize that I can just be charismatic if I just don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
Basically, Neo...
realizing that the Matrix is all fake is just dropping your insecurities.
Is getting on SSRIs.
Yeah.
And then he like defeats them and they're basically gonna take their little ship and try to like start a revolution where all the people are gonna overtake the robots. But this is really just the beginning because they needed Neo to kind of come into his own and realize that he is the leader or like the, you know, the weaponous man figure that they needed. And that's the end of the movie. And then he kind of flies into the sun like the car from Grease. And he's like, this is just the beginning.
And then they start playing Rage Against the Machine.
The soundtrack of this movie slaps.
Fire, dude.
Rob Zombie, so cool.
Yep.
That was a really bad explanation, though, because I really missed all of the nuances of, like, what the Matrix actually is.
I don't think that you can really get into it without, like, actually watching the movie. It's like The Truman Show, but if The Truman Show was everyone and also robots and computers, there you go.
Yeah. And instead of Jim Carrey, it's Keanu Reeves. So immediate upgrade.
Yeah, infinitely better.
They offered the role of Neo. They wanted it to be Will Smith. And they were like, Will Smith, because he had just been in, like, Men in Black. And, like, you know, he was, like, basically, like, the action guy. And they were like, hey, they're like, we want you to do this action movie. And then they, like, explained it to him. And he was like, I do not understand that. No.
Good for him.
He's like, I don't get it. He's like, this is not checking out to me.
Honestly, good for him for being real and being like, that is above my mental capacity. No, thank you.
Because the directors had all the people in the cast, especially Keanu Reeves, do, like, extensive, like, prerequisite reading about, like, the philosophy of, like, do we live in a simulation or not? Basically, or, like, what is perception?
I just know Keanu Reeves was so into that.
He's so cool. I don't know. He'll be one of the ones, if we learn that he is a bad person, it'll make me really bummed. But he seems pretty chill. As far as my perception of him goes, he seems like an alright guy.
Totally agree with you. Thank God Will Smith didn't take this on. I don't think it would have been what it is.
Also, they wanted Val Kilmer to be Morpheus. I think he also said no. And it's crazy.
Also, thank God.
It's crazy to think of anyone except, because, like, Lawrence Fishburne, in his little glasses that have no arms.
Without oh my God. No, the frameless glasses sent me over the edge. Like, I knew about them, but, like, seeing them, like, in the mix, it was crazy. That was the craziest part of the movie for me. I'm like, how'd they design that?
The costume design does go so fucking hard. I wish my glasses, like, clipped onto the bridge of my nose.
Right?
Probably not, though. I'd probably get a headache. Like a sinus headache. Mine are too big. I feel like you gotta rock the, like... That's a fashion trend, but I struggle with, is the really skinny glasses. Like, especially, like, the sunglasses. I feel like I
think that you could. I feel like my face is too round for it.
I also have a pretty round face, though. I feel like I always go for, like, the bigger the better for all glasses.
I think you need to have, like, a more angular chin to be able to rock the skinny guys.
Well, it kind of defeats the point, because, like, if they're only a half an inch thin, then you're not keeping the sun out.
Fashion over function, baby.
Yeah,
come on.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think anyone out there wearing little Matrix glasses is really doing it for eye protection.
Jump back onto, like, the reason why we've actually done this movie. Like, the entire movie is just, like, if you just look at it as in, like, I think it's easier, like, as a queer person to see it. Like, I can't speak for anyone that's, you know, straight or cis het and everything like that. It's just such an easy, like, jump in your brain. You know what I mean? Like, the entire time I was, like, watching this movie, I was like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. This is why it's gay.
Yeah. It is definitely, like, prominent themes of identity and, like, knowing yourself. And, like, I think the whole him going from, like, naive skeptic to, like, master of his own fate, basically, is, like, him being more comfortable in that, like, digital identity or whatever, like the Thomas Anderson versus the Neo, and then him realizing that it is just those, like, mental barriers that you have to overcome, and if you just, like, live as your most true and authentic self, then that's when you thrive the most. Like, obviously that is, like, yes, that's what, like, being trans is. And the whole, like, living in a society that is, like, covering up who you really are or whatever, that's also such an obvious such an obvious thing. But the Wachowski sisters didn't come out until 2016, I believe, so it was well after this movie was out. So this wasn't really as much of a discussion until then. Like, obviously there were queer people who really read the movie as that, and it was, like, you know, but more just a personal, like, theory or just, like, interpretation. But then when they did come out, they were like, oh, hell yeah, like, that is you are right, that is exactly what is happening here.
What really did it for me was, like, finding, like, that group of people that will actually, like, push you the extra mile and be like, hey, look at all of this, look at what you can be and what you can do. You know what I mean? Because, like, even as just, like, me being, like, a queer person, like, finding that group, like, early on is, like, really where you start to thrive and everything like that, let alone I couldn't imagine, like, being a trans person and, like, finding your, like, kin.
They also, all of the, like, people on the ship, like, who are awake are, like, so non-binary coded. Their names
everyone
Switch, Cypher, and Mouse, and they all, like, are super androgynous.
Yep.
I just love that, because it's really interesting if you want to get into some of the cultural implications of this movie. I think it casts such a wide net. So many people have had so many different, like, interpretations or, like, projecting their own beliefs onto this movie, that, like, the term red-pilled is super adopted by the, like, crazy alt-right, like, Andrew Tate type community. And it's wild that this movie made by these two trans women that has so much, like, I don't want to say, like, woke, but, like, you know, about an oppressive system or whatever, that these crazy alt-right people have taken this term and they basically use it to be, like, fake news, like, the world, you're being put in a situation that's oppressive, but also, like, feminism is an illusion for women to control men, and that's why you need to get red-pilled. Like, oh my god, how on earth did you get that out of this movie? But
really?
I think it goes to show that it's such a good piece of art that it can be, like, not that it's good that those people interpret it this way, but the fact that anyone can sort of, like, pick and choose from it what they want to spin it as.
It can span like crazy.
Like, having such a good representation of, like, an oppressive system that then anyone who does feel oppressed can, like, place themselves in it, even if it is a white man who thinks that, you know, feminism is evil. Like, it's just wild to me. And I'm like, do those people know that this movie is literally made by,
two
like,
trans women?
The people that you, like, are inherently thinking that this system is? Like, what? It is absolutely wild to me. I mean, obviously not, but there's a Reddit community called, like, Red Pilled that got taken down or something after, like, 400,000 people were part of this Reddit community. And it was all, like, incels talking about, like, and they basically just took this phrase of, like, red pill, like, wake up, you know, wake up and recognize the system, and, like, then obviously steered it in their own really hyper-specific direction that had nothing to do with the movie. But it's just wild to me because, like, those two, you know, what the movie is and the people who made it versus, like, this weird cultural, like extraction of it could not be more different.
I'll tell you what, if I saw this movie, like it's so crazy too, because it's 2023 and this movie is like what, 24, 25 years old at this point, something like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that it still like has that impact today is wild. But I'll tell you what, if I saw this movie in 1999 when it came out, I'd be the most annoying person you know.
I would know how to code. I would have a very different life because I would know how to code.
I think this movie would have had the cultural impact on me that the Hunger Games had on me.
I mean, this movie is also a trilogy. Well, I think there's three. It was a trilogy.
And then there's a new one, right?
Yeah, so they immediately after this one actually had a fair amount of commercial success. Like, it wasn't really expected to do as well as it did. But then it came out and it was like immediate, like not even cult classic, like immediate, like box office hit, basically. Yeah. And so they immediately filmed both 2 and 3 at the same time, and then they released them 6 months apart from each other. So 2 and 3 came out in the same year. I think it's 2003, maybe. But yeah, so 2 and 3 came out in pretty close succession and were relatively viewed by fans as like not that great, like not great. Because
have you seen them?
I have seen them maybe once, maybe many years ago. So I would really have to revisit them to like give a accurate opinion. My memory of them is mostly like it's about the revolution and all the people fighting the robots, basically. Okay. So it's more like action-y in that way and less about like, I think the reason number 1 is so good is you get this like really intense world building for this like wild thing you probably would never have thought of. You know, the whole setting itself is just so unique and creative and interesting that I feel like once you get past that, like, oh my God, my mind is blown. Like, just having all action take place in there maybe was not as impactful. I don't know, though. I'd really have to go rewatch them. But yeah, they were like, you know, people thought they were kind of mid. And then there was a 4th one, which I think is supposed to be like the ending or whatever. That came out in like 2021, which... Yeah,
pretty recently.
I know nothing about it.
No. I remember people were psyched. I remember the promotion for it was pretty good.
All I remember from the trailer is that Neil Patrick Harris was in it. And that he, like, was the villain. And I was like, that's a weird choice, but okay.
Okay.
That's all I remember.
That's strange.
There's also an animated movie called Animatrix. Which
I don't like that.
Which I think came out maybe before the 2 sequels, which I also really don't know that much about, but I do know that they were super inspired by anime and, like, you know, graphic novels for this movie, and it's super obvious in all of the action sequences. Like, it's literally anime.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they show somebody get punched, like, 3 times, like, do, from 3 different angles, and I'm like, that's straight up from, like, Naruto. Like... Yeah. But they openly were very much like, oh yeah, we're super inspired by anime. And when they were pitching it to Warner Brothers, they were like, this is our idea. And they were like, that sounds whack as fuck. Absolutely not. So then they got 2 comic book artists to frame by frame storyboard out the entire movie in 600 pages. And then they gave that to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was like, okay, I see what you mean. I see where this is going. And they didn't have a huge budget, but they were like, sure, we'll let this go. And then when they were shooting, they sent back over to Warner Brothers the first sequence of the movie of Trinity, like in the hotel or wherever she is, like that very first opening scene. And then they were like, oh, this is really going to be good. And that's when they bumped up like the promotion for it and everything. Because they were like, oh, we are convinced of the vision, like for real now.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I have never been so turned on by Kung Fu since Kill Bill.
So I forget their name, but the stunt coordinator of this movie did this film, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Kill Bill. Is the same. And they're like a classic like kung fu
I should have known.
Film. Yeah, they're like a classic kung fu stunt coordinator. They got brought over to do this movie, and then this movie really set the standard of like what American action films can achieve when like taking that classic kung fu film, like authentic approach to the stunts, that then those 2 movies were like, oh, we want that guy. So it makes a lot of sense. It is visually very similar, and I think that they make a lot of the actors like do a lot of their own stuff, so it seems like it's less hokey because it's like you can tell it's them.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, I'm assuming, I assumed that a lot of the actors did all of their stuff, and then Keanu Reeves did like the John Wick stuff after this, right? I don't know anything about John Wick.
Yeah,
but
John
I'm assuming
Wick came after this.
Yeah, I figured, I was like, this probably like set him up to be like that sort of action star.
Yeah, before this movie, he had been in Speed, which was kind of like a hokey. That's about the car that can't go slower than anything or else everyone dies. It's like Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, and they're like on this bus and there's a bomb strapped to it. And if the bus goes like less than 60 miles per hour, everyone blows up. So they have to keep the bus going really fast. It's... Have you never seen Speed?
No, I feel like I should know.
It's like really hokey, but like as
even better.
As a concept, it's just like what the fuck. But yeah, he had been in like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or whatever, which is like a goofy
good movie.
Movie. But then he had been in Speed, and they were like, oh, he has like action star potential. And then this movie they were like, oh, that guy should be an assassin in every franchise.
God, now I feel like I have to watch Speed.
It's like not great.
Yeah, but that's even better.
Then there's a sequel, I think, about like a boat that has to go really slow. Like
you're lying. That can't be real.
And that Sandra Bullock also was offered the role of Trinity, but at the time it was assumed that Will Smith was going to be Neo, so she said no because she was like, I'm all set with that. And so then,
really?
And so I think she said that she maybe regrets it, or like that it would have been good because Keanu Reeves and like that they work well together or whatever. But
yeah, I can see that. Well, who's the actress that plays Trinity?
Carrie-Anne Moss.
Why do I feel like I should know that and I don't?
I think this was her first like big movie, as far as I know, and I don't really know her from much other than this.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else in her filmography that stands out to me. Tell you what, she was hot.
Oh my god, who is it but Jen, my mother. She's here to do Chocolate or Vanilla, an interim podcast segment to break up the show. My lovely mother, Jen, she comes in via microphone. She says two things. We all say which one we like better. Jen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm alright. Jen, is there a theme this week?
Yes. Alternate universe, alternate timeline, that type of thing.
Swag. Yeah. Love it.
So chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Vanilla.
Chocolate. Chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry?
Chocolate.
I'll say strawberry today.
Ooh, I'm going to say strawberry too. We got strawberries from the store the other day. They were humongous. They were so good. All right, first one. The Lizzie McGuire Show or Inception?
The Lizzie McGuire Show? Like the TV show Lizzie McGuire?
Yeah, she used to be like a cartoon character.
Yeah. Like...
that's the alternate...
Like, you mean like
that's the alternate universe
like
of
how
it all.
Her conscious, like, was... Yeah. Okay, what was my other choice?
Inception.
I'm gonna pick Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah, I gotta stick with my girl Lizzie on this one.
Same. I'm gonna go with Lizzie. Next one, Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Being John Malkovich.
I've never seen Being John Malkovich, but I love The Truman Show. I like Eternal Sunshine as well, but I love The Truman Show, so I will pick that one.
I think I like sad and serious Jim Carrey more than any sort of silly, goofy Jim Carrey, and I think Eternal Spot. What is it? Spotlight?
Eternal Spotshine of the Sunless Mind.
Eternal Spotlight.
Eternal Sunshine.
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Fuck. Eternal Sunshine. Jesus. I am buffering so hard today. Yeah, that one.
I'm gonna go Truman Show. I think in Being John Malkovich, they go like inside his head or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Next one, is in The Prisoner of Azkaban when Hermione uses the Time Turner necklace, or in Doctor Who when they use the TARDIS?
Well, I feel like her using the time travel necklace was like, that was just one thing that happened once in the entire grand scheme of Harry Potter. But they use the TARDIS in every fucking episode of Doctor Who. Like, without the TARDIS, there is nary a show to be had. So I feel like I have to pick time travel with the TARDIS.
See, I was never on that Doctor Who wave, have never watched an episode. But I will say, I did like how, like, in Harry Potter, with Hermione and all of them, they had to, like, be one step behind themselves, and you could kind of, like, see them both in the same scene. I always liked that about that movie. So I'll go for the time travel necklace.
Yeah, same. I like when you can see yourself in the future. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Next one is About Time or Julie and Julia.
Julie and Julia.
Really?
Yeah, you know.
Fair enough. I love About Time. That's one of my favorite rom-coms, so.
Yeah, you know who's not in that movie? Stanley Tucci.
It's fair. But, hey, listen, the god of rom-coms is, so I gotta,
I have not seen either of these, even though I try to watch all the movies you guys cover, so I will say About Time.
I think you'd like it a lot, Jen.
Yeah, I think I would too. Next one is Space Jam or Coraline.
Those are like two of my. I still don't have a top four or like a four favorites on my Letterboxd, but I always watch their TikToks where they make celebrities say them, and I think so hard about what I would say, and both Space Jam and Coraline might be in my top four, like, of all time. But I think Coraline is like my S tier movie. So, but you're really making me think today.
Yeah,
Jen.
you came for her throat. I think Space Jam does it for me just a bit more. So I'll go for Space Jam.
Yep, I was a Space Jam girl too.
Come on and slam!
And welcome to the jam! Dude, I always feel so insane because every now and then at Trader Joe's, I'll be like in the back room writing an order or something, and I just hear, come on and slam! And welcome to the jam! And it's like playing in the middle of Trader Joe's. I'm like, where am I? I feel like I just got flashbanged.
Why is that on the corporate playlist?
I don't know. It's like
that is
every
some
like
good
3
work
weeks
music
it'll
right
come
there.
on.
Next one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or No Way Home.
Into the Spider-Verse, absolutely.
Yeah.
Shits, vomits, and murders every other superhero movie.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Into the Spider-Verse as well.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Did Spider-Verse 2 come out yet?
Yes.
It did,
Yep.
right? Next one is Back to the Future or Terminator.
I don't think I've ever seen Terminator, which I think that's probably Henry's probably gonna make me watch that at some point. We've been on like a bad action movie kick lately. Not that Terminator's bad, but it's one of those, classic ones. But I'll pick Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, like The Matrix, is one that is messed up that I've never seen. At this point, I really have no desire to see it at all. I think my life would be exactly the same. I don't think I would have any impact. So
I think these two are referenced so often. I can't believe you guys haven't seen them.
It's just like one of those 80s movies that nothing about it makes me want to watch it. So I'm going to say Terminator, I think, because now I feel more inclined right now to watch an action movie.
All right, I'll go Terminator 2 then. But I think I was telling Dara that I was voting next May for Michael May Fox.
I like that. Okay.
You heard it here first, folks. Put in your bids for next year's May pun, because we're already taking suggestions.
Because I think about it every day. Next one, It's a Wonderful Life or Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a Wonderful Life was one of those movies that, like, you made me watch it when I was just a little bit too young. I just hated it because I was like, you're making me watch this. And you were like, it's important. And I was like, I don't care. And I think by the time the pool opened up, I was checked out.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years, so.
Yeah, same, for sure. Next one is Edge of Tomorrow or Groundhog Day.
What is Edge of Tomorrow?
It is like Groundhog Day with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt.
Well, fuck Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I'll pick Groundhog Day.
Yeah, not a Tom Cruise girly, so I'll go for Groundhog
It's like
Day.
a futuristic action thing, but they keep reliving the same day until he gets it right.
Yeah, no.
I'll go Groundhog Day too then. Next one. Stranger Things, Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or Spy Kids 3 Game Over.
Oh! It's Spy Kids 3 Game Over!
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spy Kids 3.
Oh, Jen, you
The
spoiled.
guy.
We're recording this well after Emily and I have done the episode, and Jen is spoiling something to come later, so...
Wow, didn't even mean to. That's when we go out of sequence. I love Spy Kids 3, but I really, really liked Shark Boy and Lava Girl back in the day. It was so good.
I can see that for you.
Last one. Loki on Disney Plus, Ready Player One, or Interstellar.
Interstellar, because they planted all of that corn for real, for real.
Yeah. Facts. That movie is a masterpiece.
I never saw Interstellar, so I probably should, but I really liked Ready Player One, so I'm going to say that. And that is it for alternate universe, multiverse, alternate timeline, etc.
Love it. Well, thank you, Jen. As always, we will see you next week.
All right. I love you guys. Have an awesome night.
Bye.
Bye. The role of Neo, I just feel like, is so perfect for Keanu Reeves. Like, he just, I don't know, he knocked it out of the park in such a way that when his transformation is believable, and I think a lot of the times I get really hung up on the, like, you're gonna go from zero to hero, you're gonna go from, like, naive, confused guy to, like, literal Kung Fu Jesus in the span of, like, a 40-minute montage. Like, that's just fucking unbelievable.
This did it for me.
And but this one I'm like, oh, I think maybe the inclusion of, like, well, we could just download Kung Fu into his brain and now he knows it. And I'm like,
perfect.
Checks out.
Perfect.
Like, I also would be a lot more confident if I could just, like, plug in a USB and be like, I'm fluent in every language now.
Yeah. Trinity being like, I need a helicopter simulator. Or a helicopter program. And he's like, got it. And she's like, no problem.
If you could get one, like, USB stick to stick in your ear of, like, something, it has to be, it can't be like, I'm good at every, you know, it has to be, like, kind of specific. Yeah. You know, it can't be, I think maybe every language. That would be really useful. If they were, like, language proficiency across the board. Or even just one language.
Yeah, right. You didn't give me any time to prepare for this.
I know, sorry. And I feel like you also can't pick, like, talent. Like, you can't be, like, singing.
Yeah.
Because, like,
no.
I feel like you either have that or you don't, but maybe. I don't know. Singing's kind of technical.
I'd really like to be the ideal driver.
Oh, that's so practical. Like, a fire parallel parker.
Yeah, I think that would do it for me. Language is really good, too.
Yeah, because, like, knowing Kung Fu wouldn't change my life.
No.
I don't need that.
It'd be sick. I'll tell you what, while we're on the topic of Trinity, I get that every sort of big blockbuster needs it. And
this one didn't.
Yep. We didn't need the little love storyline. It was so, like,
forced.
It was so forced, and, like, I know that they kind of were trying to, like, I feel like through the directors, it probably got pushed on them, being like, okay, we need a love story plot, because every big action movie does, I guess. But it was so sparse throughout it. You know what I mean? It was just alluded to, like, maybe 3 times. And then Keanu Reeves just gets the fucking kiss of life at the end. When she leans in and she said, the Oracle told me that I would fall in love with the one. So you can't die. Because I love you. Or some shit. And he just wakes up and starts doing, like, the most insane shit.
Neo is a Disney princess because
literally
he gets revived by true love's kiss, and it's so bullshit. And it also is like, okay, you're only in love because of this weird, like, fate prophecy, so that's, like, such a good write-off of, like, we don't need them to have on-screen chemistry because we can just say that it's this thing. And it's not that they didn't have chemistry, it's that they had the chemistry of, like, really fire coworkers. Of, like, they were really good at, like, doing their job together, but, like, romance-wise, I feel like Neo was going through way too much, like, learning that the world was a simulation to be worried about, like, trying to hit, which is, like, super fair. And then them being like, oh yeah, by the way, they're in love. I totally agree. I was like, I don't need this. And then when that moment happened, I'm like, you don't love him. You love the idea of him. Yeah. Because he's being presented as this, like, messiah savior figure. And you've been told that that's, like, what's going to happen to you. It's just was not believable. I didn't like it. And I would have way rather they spun it as, like, I don't know, like, she knew she had to bring him back or something. Just, like, some, I don't know. I also didn't really care for the romance aspect.
I get it. I would also, like, want to fuck God. If that's what the Oracle told me.
Or, like, fuck Keanu Reeves. And, like, of course.
It's, like, the same thing.
And I'm like, yeah, look at the both of them. Like, duh.
Yeah. Obviously. They're gonna make the most androgynous child.
Oh my god. But that's also how I was like, I don't think you like men. I was like, Trinity, I don't know.
I was like, can you just get with Switch, please?
Oh my god. I was really upset that they killed off Switch.
I know. I hated that. And they knew it was coming. Just sitting there, they're like, not like that.
But yeah, that whole scene when they, like, kill off half the cast, I was like, bummer, because especially, like, with sequels, the only thing I remember about the sequel is that Jada Pinkett Smith is in it, and she, like, wears a really fire trench coat.
Oh, of course.
But, like, obviously they have to introduce a bunch of new fucking characters because you killed almost the entire likable cast of the first film.
Just about everyone. I did like the guy that was behind the scenes. I can't remember his name. He stayed outside of the Matrix.
Oh, Tank.
Tank, yeah. Fire name, too.
Tank and Dozer were, like, the two brothers who were like, we're real people. We were born here. We weren't
I ain't got no
people.
Plugs, bitch.
Oh my god, the scene. So I feel like a lot of the, like, CGI and effects in this movie are super crunchy because it's from 1999. But I really liked.
I didn't hate it.
I liked the level of crunch because I almost feel like it's more like itches my brain more when it is that kind of, like, Star Wars prequels level of, like, crunchy cinematics. Like when his mouth goes away, I'm like, I like that it looks kind of fucked up.
Or like watching the agents, like, turn into, like, other people and all that shit. Yeah, I could rock with that.
Like a bad Snapchat filter, but like I think it's better. Like, sometimes I wish that movies now would purposefully make their CGI like the way it was, because I feel like that's like more fun to watch. I don't know, or like you can make it aid into the, like, set of your movie, or like stylistically, rather than just having it, like, try to look, I don't know, this movie's just better than every superhero movie. Like, this movie does literally, like, action, quote unquote, like, superhuman shit just, like, so much better.
Well, like, this always comes up whenever we do cover an action movie, which is few and far between on this podcast, but I forget how much I like an action movie.
Right, you were just saying, like, you were like, I'm a sci-fi girly, and I feel like I don't watch enough sci-fi, which is, I'm like, how have you not seen this? This is, like, the...
I'm trying to awaken myself. I'm trying to pull myself out of the Matrix of A24.
Of dialogue-driven character pieces.
Yeah, I'm done. Like, watching people shoot, like, 17 different guns in the matter of, like, maybe 2 minutes. Amazing. I loved that. Watching them, like, barge into the building that Morpheus was being held in really did it for me.
Yeah, when they're, like, that whole, like, I think this movie really set the standard for a lot of action scenes, especially, like, the use of slow-mo. I think they call it, like, bullet time, which this movie didn't invent, like, that use of slow-mo, but the whole, like...
Would you say they perfected it, though?
Or, like, they did it in a way that was so admirable that everyone wanted to emulate them. Like, they saw this and were like, oh, we should, like, get on that. Of, like, that it's slowed down, but the camera is moving in real time. So it doesn't feel like the whole scene is slowed down. It just feels like the action has slowed down and you, as the viewer, are still, like, moving at normal speed, which is very cool. And is why the reason we get those cool shots of, like, him dodging the bullets and, like, him, you know, stopping time and shit like that.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
I loved those scenes where it felt like... Do you remember that one episode in SpongeBob where Squidward's just standing in, like, that kind of, like, blank white room and everything like that? Yeah. Once they jump into the simulation.
Alone.
Exactly. I really liked that once they were, like, sort of in the program. And he's like, we need a lot of guns. And then 700 different kinds of guns come whirling past them.
Or they were like, you can build anything you want in this, like, liminal space. And that one guy's like, I'm gonna build a hot bitch to fuck. And everyone else was like, you're a perv. And I'm like, honestly, that seems really realistic. Because in their real life, all they get to do is, like, code and eat oatmeal. Like, of course you'd want to, like, hop into the liminal space and have a little romp.
Right? Well, here's the thing, is, like, in the big kung fu scene, everyone can see Morpheus and Neo fighting and everything like that. I'm like, can you get plugged in to, like, what's his name? Mouse?
Yeah.
His name's Mouse. I'm like, can Mouse get plugged in to, like, fuck this code that he wrote?
I guess, because they play it off like it's a training simulation. Or, like, it's the waiting room before you go into the Matrix, so it is, like, let's get the guns before we hop in. So I'm like, I don't see why not. If they have the Kung Fu code, you definitely also have the fuck code.
Yeah. Come on. Like, how could you not? You're on a ship with, like, 7, like, different, like, really hot androgynous people, and I feel like you don't want to mess that up. I would fuck in the simulation.
For sure. Or I feel like that was, like, also Cypher's whole thing, as he was, like, the reason he wanted to get plugged back in is because he was like, oh, now that I know that, like, steak isn't real, when I come to the Matrix and I eat a steak, it just doesn't hit the same. I feel like you could maybe say the same thing, though, that, like, once you make the fuck code and then you go fuck, you're like, this is fake. This is, like... Because, you know, like, the way that they're all standing in front of the screens and they're watching the code go by and they can, like, see what's happening. I feel like if you're, like, too, like, aware of it, you're, like, fucking, but you just look at her and you just, like, see binary code and you're like, oh, this is kind of a bummer, huh?
You're like, dang, I wrote the code for her clit. It just pulls you. It's like, you know, when, like, you're having sex and your, like, brain just starts to wander to, like, something so far off of what you're doing.
It's like, damn, everything's a simulation and nothing is real, and we gotta fight those robots. It's just, like, balls deep. You're like, yeah, I guess this isn't gonna happen for me.
But yeah, no, this is a sexy cast.
And just the way they're all styled is, like, so perfect. You get the variety of, you've got, like, you know, more feminine but still androgynous Carrie-Anne Moss in her, like, PVC, but then you have, like, more masculine androgynous Neo, who's, like, in the all black too, so, like, just visually stimulating.
Well, I liked that Switch was what is it, everyone walks out into the Matrix in black, but Switch is just, like, wearing all white.
So fire.
I'm like, oh my god, scene stealer.
And they had originally wanted to cast 2 similar looking androgynous people, but one male and one female to be Switch, to be, like, an actual actor change for when Switch is in and out, and then that actor auditioned and they were like, oh, you're perfect, you can just do both. Like, we're just gonna put you in slightly more feminine or masculine clothing in either situation and it's gonna be perfect. Like, we don't even need to get 2 people, which I like better almost, because I feel like that would have been a little distracting, especially when it's not, like, addressed super directly. It's more just, like, an observation thing. I would have been like, is that a different person? Like, what the fuck? So I like that it was the same actress.
Yeah, no. This movie invented gender fluidity, actually.
I know. How can you possibly be projecting your alt-right, like, right-wing hateful beliefs onto this movie when it just is so obviously...
This is the gayest movie. This movie is so gay. These are the people that, like, once all of, like, the corporate bullshit pride stuff ends at the march, or at the parade, like, everyone in their leather comes bouncing by. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's not anyone, like, have it, like, doing their kink thing. That's just
how
the
they
squad
are
in the Matrix. Yeah.
It also, when you look at the Wachowskis, like, roster of films that they've done, it also is like, how could you possibly think that this movie is straight? I don't remember the name of their first movie, but it was like a lesbian neo-noir, like, crime movie. It was their first one.
I have to go watch that.
And then after this, they did V for Vendetta, and then they did the Speed Racer movie. Do you remember that?
I don't think so.
So they did the Speed Racer movie, and then they did these two big sci-fi flops, Atlas Cloud and Jupiter Rising. Both, like, one of them, I forget which one it is, but one of them has, like, Mila Kunis and, like, Eddie Redmayne in it. Yeah, and it was, like, a huge box office flop. Like, it was this, like, big sci-fi fantasy movie that, like, totally just did not.
Wait, that was, like, one of their... before. They did that before this?
No, after. This is... Everything I just named was after.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Jupiter Ascending. Yeah, I remember that. It was, like, Mila Kunis and, like, Eddie Redmayne, and it was just, like, not good.
Yeah. And then they also did the TV show Sense8, which I think is a Netflix original, and was, I think, my knowledge of it is that it really notably was super queer and got canceled
people were very upset about it.
Like, way before the storyline could actually, like, end or develop, and a lot of people really loved it, and then they just canceled the show. But I feel like there was a lot of, like, lesbian shit going on in that show from my bystander observation. Maybe I'll have to go watch it. It's hard to knowingly start a show knowing that it doesn't have a good conclusion.
Yeah.
It's, like, kind of a bummer.
Do we want to get into our regularly scheduled programming?
Yeah. So I feel, who are we for Fuck, Marry, Kill? Do we want to do
Neo, Morpheus,
and Trinity? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna marry Morpheus because he, as, like, an organizer, really has his shit together, and I like somebody who's, like, a planner. You know, I like that he's sort of got it all laid out. Also, like, you know, he's got the ship. Nebuchadnezzar. That's a good cat name, if anyone wants to steal that.
Very true.
I just feel like, I don't know. I trust that man. So I'm going to marry Morpheus. I'm going to kill Neo, because it would be kind of fire to kill God.
Really?
And then I'll fuck Carrie-Anne Moss.
See, I think that as much as I like the character of Morpheus, I don't think that his work-life balance would work for me, especially in a marriage. And I could fuck him, but look at Neo and Trinity.
So true.
You know? So I'm gonna have to kill Morpheus. I think he would understand, too.
He would just do it himself, actually.
Yeah, he would just unplug himself for me. I'm gonna fuck Neo. The question is, do I fuck Neo in the Matrix or out of the Matrix? Because I kind of, like, could we joint slay our bald heads? I think I'm gonna fuck real Neo.
But I feel like, I guess after, like, doing all of his mental karate training, he, like, gets his muscles back. But I feel like the whole point is when they pull him out and he's all, like, atrophied and emaciated and he looks like a pale slug.
That's true.
I could be kind of into that, though.
Do you fuck in the goop?
Yes, I wanted to lay in the goop so bad. The, like, viscous texture of it, I'm like, oh, I want to take a bath in that slime. Oh my god. That's them, like, giving him acupuncture and, like, reviving his, like, atrophied muscles or whatever. He's like, why am I so weak? And they're like, oh, it's because your body has been just in goo. We need to help you, like, build you back up. And they're like, you know, that's, like, when I'm hungover the next morning, that's me. And then all of them, like, reviving his body back to normal state is just, like, an iced coffee and a bagel. And then I'm, like, normal again. And now I know Kung Fu. Like.
Yeah. But so I'm going to fuck Neo and then I'm going to marry Trinity.
Fire.
Because, yeah, I just think that we would hit it off. I don't think that I could get along with a coding bro like that. But, like, I'd let him hit.
Right, when they're in the Matrix and, like, all the code is going by and they're like, do. That's how I felt when I would, like, change my Tumblr HTML, like, in middle school to, like, change my theme to, like, have music play or something. Like, you're going into the HTML and I'm like, I'm a coder girl. I'm a hacker. Just, like, changing the color from blue to green. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then out of the whole movie.
Okay. I would say that I want to marry the Oracle because I really like that, like, quaint, like, homey life, but she like runs Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and I don't want all those fuck-ass kids running around.
Hot she was.
I know. I feel like she died after this movie, so she's not in any of the sequels, so they got a different person to be the Oracle in the sequels. I also was looking...
she was in Reloaded.
Oh, but not the third one, then.
I guess not, no.
But I wanted to see what else she was in, but I didn't recognize.
Yeah, died 2001, so she probably died after, must have died after Reloaded.
But I feel like I don't fuck with those creepy-ass kids, so I feel like we're just gonna have to be friends. But she was like a fringe choice, but do you feel like the agents can fuck? Hugo Weaving's kind of scary, though. I feel like I'd be intimidated. I'm gonna fuck Tank's brother Dozer, who gets shot and died. He was sexy, so I'm gonna fuck him.
He would rail you.
I'm gonna marry Switch, but for, like, the wardrobe.
Yeah, slay.
And then I'm gonna kill Neo's boss at the coding firm who was mad at him for being late, because he was lame.
I think I'm gonna fuck Switch. For obvious reasons. I think I'm gonna marry Tank. Because he seems like a sweetie. Like, I think he would do me right.
And he could code you. You could be like, hey babe, can you download the good at making ceviche software? And you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna make dinner. Like,
yeah. And
why did I say ceviche? That was so random.
I mean, I guess it works. I'm gonna kill Cypher for killing all of my non-binary homies.
If anyone has seen The Sopranos, the Cypher actor is Ralph Cifaretto, and he looks really different in these two movies. And the day that it unlocked in my brain that was the same person, I am not the same.
I love when that happens. And so, what are you going to eat and drink for this? You're hosting your little gathering. You're all watching The Matrix. What are you serving?
Okay, so I took 2 food references from this movie and I'm combining them. So the scene where Cypher is eating the steak and he's explaining to the agent, like, oh, like, it doesn't hit the same, but, like, I just want to eat steak again and not know that it's code steak. And so he's like a rare steak or whatever, and there's like this shot of the steak on his fork or whatever. I'm like, that's too, like, 1-to-1. Also, I just don't want to just eat steak.
Yeah.
And then they're driving at one point, and Neo turns and he's like, oh, I used to go to that noodle shop. It was really fire. Like, weird to think that it's fake or whatever. So I think you get, like, a nice, rare, thinly cut steak and you put it over some ramen. So, like, a nice, like, a fried egg and some thinly seared steak over, like, a ramen with some, like, you know, some veg, some bok choy, get in there, maybe some, like, chili oil, whatever. You do some, like, fire steak noodles. And then to drink, that scene where they're, like, all eating the sad oatmeal and they're all, like, so sad about the oatmeal. I'm like, oatmeal, oat milk. Oat milk is one of those, like, weird capitalist, like, things that, like, it has no nutritional value and it only exists to be an alternate to another thing. So I always feel like it's very, like, we live in a simulation when I'm looking at the milk aisle and there's, like, 8,000 different... And, I mean, I love it. I'm drinking oat milk in my coffee right now. Like, I
was going to ask.
Nothing against oat milk, but I'm, like, that's one of those things that I'm, like, it's one of those, like, late capitalist, like, things that has emerged of, like, why are there so many oat milk choices? But, like, I guess. So you take, like, we live in a simulation vibes. That's what oat milk gives me. So you take oat milk and you make a White Russian. So you do an oat milk White Russian, because that's my hang up with White Russians, is that I don't want to drink vodka and milk. But, like, vodka and oat milk seems like less of a stretch. So you do your oat milk White Russian and your fire steak noodles.
I'm going to come out right now. This feels like a movie that I should come out for. I'm pro cow's milk.
That's fair.
Thank you.
That's fair.
Yeah. As a gay person, it's really hard for me to say.
That you like milk, that you can process dairy, you dumb bitch. Oh my god, a gay person who can process dairy, I'm sorry. That's not real.
It's so tough because I think I'm like in the stages of becoming like more lactose sensitive right now, and that's really hard for me to swallow.
You just take Lactaid.
Yeah. Which I'm sure I will, but
I also kind of agree.
I'm in denial.
Oat milk or almond milk can be just like flavorless and so watery that I'm like, my coffee's still black. Like,
yeah, you just had to use half of the creamer in it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I watched this movie and I drank a Red Bull, midday Red Bull, while watching this movie. It was like 3:00, and that just felt really right for me, watching all of the code go by and drinking a Red Bull. Why can't I speak? Sorry, I'm glitching right now.
When you're a human battery, or like, my human battery is low because I haven't had my Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna say make it a cocktail, vodka Red Bull, nothing crazy. And for me, I recently just got back from a trip. I was on a cruise. And what was really tough for me was not being able to like control what I was eating almost. Because it's very much like you have like your selection of things that they serve you and like, obviously like a menu. But that was frustrating. So I was sitting there, I'm like, and I came back and like the first thing I ate was probably one of the best things I had eaten in like months. And it wasn't anything crazy, but I was sitting there, I was like, if you have been out of the Matrix and you get unwoked like Cypher, what is the first thing that you're going to eat? And I think you choose that. For me, it was a margarita pizza. Gas. Absolutely gas. Perfect. Loved it. What wasn't even like the best pizza I've ever had, but it just hit so right. So I think if you're hosting a little event, you tell everyone to bring the thing that they're going to want first.
Yeah.
Once they're back in the Matrix.
It's like your first meal out of prison.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like your last meal.
Yeah.
Or whatever that
There's
question
so many
is.
different ways you can spin it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you do that.
That's fire.
Mm-hmm. And after you watch this movie and you eat your first meal, final meal, whatever meal, I think that you watch another movie that tinges on the alternate universe kind of thing. And I think you watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, fire. Have you seen the new one?
No, I haven't yet.
It was really good, obviously.
I believe it. I've heard amazing things.
Yeah, obviously it was so good.
Yeah. What do you bring into the movie?
So, to follow this up, I have two suggestions. The first one is the John Carpenter movie, They Live. It's very similar in the way of, like, reality is being veiled right in front of you, and the characters, like, put on sunglasses to, like, see the real world versus, like, the fake world. And, I mean, that's all I'll say, but it's a classic in the way that when you watch it, you realize that everything after it is referencing it, kind of thing, which I feel like this movie also has a lot of, like, oh, like, I get so many references now that I've seen this, like, iconic piece of media. But I think truly what my heart says is you watch Spy Kids 3, Game Over, because they have, like, the guy, like, Elijah Wood is, like, the guy, and then they, like, find him, and then it turns out that he's not the guy, which is, like, very, like, Neo's the one, but, like, he's, like, not the one, which, I mean, obviously, they're, like, doing a bit from that, but I fucking love the Spy Kids movies, and I think Spy Kids 3 is a masterpiece, and so I think you follow it up with that.
I think you're so right about that. I love that. And then what are you gonna rate this movie? I'm giving it a 9.5.
Yeah, like a 9.
It is kind of a perfect movie.
Yeah, no notes really. It's so good. I will watch it again and again. I really do have to watch the sequels because I don't really have an opinion on them, and I feel like I should.
We can get together and watch them.
Yeah. I think I own them on DVD. Like, growing up, I had them on DVD, but I only ever really watched the first one.
Interesting. Love that.
But, Emily, I'm so glad that you're more woke now.
Yeah.
You're unplugged. You're on the ship, and I would honestly take the blue pill. I don't want to eat oatmeal and fight.
I don't think that there's much.
Out.
I just don't think that I can bring that much to the table.
Yeah, I mean, well, they can download karate into your head, so in theory you could, but
I'm tired.
Yeah,
come on.
I just want to sit here and do my podcast. If this is a simulation, then I'm fine with it.
So be it. Morpheus.
I'm gonna drink my oat milk latte, and I'm gonna do my little podcast.
Yeah. Morpheus, more like morph these tits. Yeah, keep me out of this in the simulation.
But thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us on this ride of Pride Month. I have no idea what we're going to do next month. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. Movie suggestions, month themes, chocolate or vanillas, all of it. We're scheming and plotting on maybe starting a Patreon. I want to have a fair amount of backlogged content. So if I ask you for $3, you don't just give it to me and then get nothing, So we're working on that. So if any of you have any ideas of for $3, what would you like to see from us kind of energy? Let me know, because we're in the process of brainstorming all of that. And as always, all of our shit is in the description below. We love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye, and good night.